Hello and welcome to a new video, and I'm super excited because I can talk properly again, I feel well again, that's fantastic. So let's jump right into it. Should you sound for again? Before I start these type of videos, I have two disclaimers I want to make. I will always make them because they take priority over everything else. If this is your favorite character, okay? Go all in. We have seen this with Aizen, with Toshiro, with Gin, with Banka Ichigo. Their boundaries are really strong. They basically guarantee longevity to the characters that maybe we haven't seen yet, right? Out of the game in itself. So if you have a favorite character, go for it. Go all in. Try to get as many copies as possible to give the character as much longevity as possible. Strictly speaking, the only places where you need the characters are endgame. That's where performance matters, right? But if you are free to play, if you are low spenders like B0, B1, we won't be able to compete anyways in the higher rankings. And if you look at Feast, for example, all you need to do is basically just the weekly stuff here. You have to reach 70. That would be nice for the Jade, right? If you can reach 70k, that's fantastic. Usually that means that you have two teams that can tackle the elements and then one off team that can tackle the rest. This is, by the way, once you go over level 60. So in your Frenzy Feast, it may look different. You may only need two teams. So the requirements that you need to accomplish the 50k weekly score is lower, for example. Then if you look at the rewards here, and I'm going to 50 to 64, for example, you look at the rewards here, the difference is minimal. Even if you place top 30, look at the difference here in stamp ectoplasm. It's barely nothing. Yeah, you don't get the title, but is it really that important? Is it worth it to waste 16k Jade for a title, so to speak, if you don't want to go all in into a banner? So because the endgame isn't that rewarding in differences from the different tiers, there is no pressure for you to need to pull for the most broken new unit ever. Aizen was kind of an exception because what he brings to the team, what he brings to your account is fantastic. He does everything as a tactician, and he can be your main DPS if you don't have one. With that out of the way, first, favorite characters. Second, fun. You have events here. You can do the trials. Where is it? Oh, here is the trial. I was like, wait, wasn't it on the left side? Do the trials. Test out the character, see if it's fun to you. You have a lot of stuff in here. Was it here? I think it was in Lurking Grounds, right? Yeah, in the Dead Zone challenge. You can go into the Dead Zone challenge. Usually you can play with a limited trial characters here and you can see if the playstyle is even for you, okay? So before you decide if the gameplay is fun, if you want to pursue the character, check this stuff. Check these trials out, check the trial character in itself out, and if it's fun, then pull for him. If your concern is performance, that's a different thing. If it's about performance, there is one aspect that we have to talk about with Gin, which is super important, and that has to do with the banner in itself. Because that banner in itself got altered quite a bit because Rangiku is not in there. We don't know yet when Rangiku comes back. It could be on the 16th, it could be on the 21st when they add new events to the game, but it could also be after Gin goes away, right? We don't know when she will be added to the game. We don't have any confirmation about this one. The fact is though that we get Rangiku at max boundary and a fully ascended weapon stamp. This means if the character will be added into the banner, suddenly, if, that's a big if, we don't have any confirmation, this is purely speculation, but if it's added to the character pool here, we are going to lose a lot of value in a certain way if you are looking for dupes for Uryu and Chad, okay? That said, what about Gin in itself though? Is he as broken as everyone claims? Starting now, I will display my... Okay, disclaimer here real quick. I cannot showcase this in a proper way, because the thrust team that I have, my Tozen is 44k, right? My Gin is 32k, and my Byakuya is 26k. So it wouldn't be fair to compare the performances of the two teams, and because those two teams play differently, and they have different field time and everything else, the only way that I could compare the three main DPSer was by using Aizen and Kisuke, okay? So, somewhere on the screen, I will be starting to showcase each individual rotation that I did with them for a minute straight, and in the meanwhile, I will talk about the performance. Because it's quite important that people know this. Currently at B0, Gin seems to be the strongest character. Straight up, he doesn't need the weapon, he doesn't need the core stamp. And this is mostly to do with his impale mechanic. I can go into my Gin. What the heck? This is not going to be a character breakdown, by the way. It's just how it works. This impale scale here can be procced, and it's based on his attack. As long as you push attack as much as you can on Gin, right? Even if he's off-field, as you can see in the video, the character that is on the field will trigger it. And depending on who you play with, Aizen, for example, uses a lot of special attacks, uses a lot of techniques, battlefield effects, right? Battlefield skills, I should say, ultimates, and so on and so forth. So he will proc this impale a lot. Which means that in direct comparison, Gin may look better at certain compositions, okay? But generally speaking, between him, Toshiro, and Bankai Ichigo, there is not much of a difference. Gin wins out in B0 because his kit is more rounded at B0. Meanwhile, at B1 and B2, Bankai Ichigo and Toshiro will be a little bit more, not better as a DPS, but meanwhile Bankai Ichigo and Toshiro will be a little bit stronger at B1, and at B2 they start to be fairly similar in strength, okay? The main issue that I had during testing, and this is important to let you guys know, is that Bankai Ichigo in itself, I had to give him more field time, so his DPS or his damage is a little bit skewed towards him, but I wanted to showcase Bankai Ichigo at B1 in his best case under Aizen, okay? That's the reason why you see such a big discrepancy. You will see a 4 million damage discrepancy between Gin and Ichigo, but that doesn't mean that Ichigo is 40% stronger than Gin. It's just that the way the team works, you cannot give Gin too much time on the field with Aizen there, because then you take away on all the buffs that Aizen gives, and it takes away from the damage that Gin can produce because of the impale and so on and so forth and so on. In a thrust team, his damage is more comparable to the one of Bankai Ichigo actually, but as I said, the overall structure of the team is a little bit wonky to test because they fundamentally work different, right? Just take my word for it. Toshiro, Gin, and Bankai Ichigo are more or less the same, okay, in strength. So, do you need a main DPSer? Have you skipped Bankai Ichigo? Have you skipped Toshiro? If so, pull for Gin, because you don't need to invest. The next comparison, by the way, in full DPS would be either Yoruichi or Ikaku. Why am I talking about Yoruichi? Because if you have Aizen, for example, if you have a main full assault DPS and you don't have Toshiro or you don't have Bankai Ichigo, then your next two options would be either Yoruichi or Ikaku. Ikaku at Boundary 3 is comparable to a Gin at B0. So if you have invested into Ikaku, don't pull for Gin, because you already have invested into a thrust DPS, and if it's just for performance and not for anything else, save the resources for somebody else. Save the resources that you needed to level up Gin and to build up his set and everything. use it for the next character. Pre-farm the next character, for example. Then the same thing is valuable for Yoruichi. At the moment, it seems like BA0 new premium characters outclasses the old Full Assault characters. And this has been true for Ikkaku, and this most likely will be true for Yoruichi too. Depending on who it is and everything else, right? Take this with a grain of salt, please, because we don't know the numbers yet. I build her up, for example, because I want to test her out as she is now, and then compare her to her own Full Assault release rival, so to speak. Either way, the question remains if Gin is really worth it based on his kit. And I have to say yes. So if we compare performance, if we compare kits, his kit is fantastic. Main reason why I already mentioned this is the impale here. Him being off-field and still applying pressure and still applying damage is fantastic. Not only that, I don't know if this is a trend of a way to power creep the game, by the way, but he works on dodges. He gains technique points on a perfect dodge, which is insane, by the way. I just have to mention this. Especially once you have his core stamp, especially when you start getting all the pieces together, his technique damage will be really, really high. So getting his ability back to get into invulnerability is tremendous. When he charges this, he becomes invulnerable, invincible, right? So you see a big attack, you cannot dodge. Take Ulquiorra, for example. He does his beam attack. You switch into Gin, you start charging up his technique. He does his technique while he's charging, he cannot be hit. GG's, right? So this kind of utility is something that we have to look at. Expecting them to be all equal, he doesn't have an ultimate where he does a shit ton of damage. His ultimate is more comparable to that of Toshiro, but Toshiro has a lot of multiplier outside of the ultimate in itself. So the biggest boom for, or bang for buck ultimate is still Bankai Ichigo's basically. But that's also because in his holification he has a lot of damage multiplications, right? That said, his ultimate is not like the same as for Bankai Ichigo, for example, where he cannot die, or for Toshiro where he's on range. It's just a one and done thing, right? So he needs something else, and that's in his technique. Using his technique into a good way makes for interesting boss fights, and how to use him to maximize DPS to, for example, jump damage phases or jump certain damage that you cannot really negate, for example. There are a lot of factors where you can skill cap your way through this with this Shinzo Unsheathed. And on top of it, his ultimate, for example, brings another type of utility with it, because it's large scale. And this was the only ultimate, by the way, that I have to mention, that during Senkei's of Byakuya, I could hit every single tether with just the Bankai and kill every single one of it. Just to mention this, right? So he has a lot of uses in his kit that you can reuse and repurpose for different things, not only for damage, so to speak, right? So that gives him a lot of value. When it comes to his gacha, I mean, let's be honest, they are not good, right? Uryu might be better. Uryu even has a standing here. If you don't have Aizen, you just started out and this is your first banner and you need a battlefield tactician. Uryu might be a really good choice because you have Gin on the field and then you have just Uryu just dropping in and just proccing the impales on top of it, which is super nice too. Just as a reminder, Chet is whatever. You're not going to build Chet, but if you can get him to be 6, for example, and then you get more stops for him, if you pull him, that's nice too, I guess, right? But yeah, generally speaking, sit rep here real quick. If you need a full assault character because you skipped Toshiro, because you skipped Bankai Ichigo, go for him. If you're looking for a premium version of a full assault for the thrust team, go for him. If you don't have a build-up Ikaku, go for him. Summon for him. If all this was the case, and you're tight on resources, don't go for him. Skip him. Even if you have B1 Ikaku, to be honest. If you have a B1 Ikaku and Gin doesn't seem like such a boost for you, you can skip him. The next character, or the next two characters, I'm going to expect somewhere a strike unit in there, right? And I think that unit there will be more important because currently strike is really suffering. We don't have much. Yeah, we have Sajin, he has a fantastic support, but to be honest, he's just a skill merchant here. He's just there for the technique, and if you have a boundary 1, fantastic, then you will use him for this technique. If you don't have him at boundary 1, the question is if he's even worth building. Again, especially if you have Aizen, right? Especially, as a second, especially if you're free to play and you have to think about your resources better or who to level up. The question is if you want to specialize into giving much investment into him, right? And into the strike team in general, because currently the strike team doesn't feel that good, to be honest. But that's maybe just me, maybe you had a different experience. If you have different experience with the strike teams, let me know down in the comments down below. If you like this video, and if this video was helpful to you, if this video helped you to find a decision on if you should pull for Gin or not, let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, thank you so much for your support. Like and subscribe if you like this type of videos, and I'll see you in the next one. What do you say again?
Bye bye.
Exactly. Bye.